Hi there. Welcome back. Good to see everybody. I know right now is a bit of a dicey Science Olympiad time. Everyone's kind of all over the place planning tournaments and studying and competing and all that stuff. So glad you're able to make it out tonight. Very good to see you all. Just want to give a little bit of a rundown with how the next couple weeks are going to go. So this will be our last lap meeting for the time being because we have two tournaments coming up. Next week, next Wednesday, I'll be giving you an assignment to do on your own. Shouldn't take more than 15, 20 minutes. It'll be very easy, and you can kind of use that in replacement of the lap meeting because we have our big tournament coming up that Saturday. And so during that competition time, obviously the coaches will be quite literally running around putting out fires. And that will be a lot of work for them. So look forward to that, guys. And then for our students who are competing, a lot of competition at this competition. A lot of difficult teams come from different places. Want you to be ready and focused on that. And so you'll be kind of all full steam ahead into that on the competition side. And then after the competition, I'm hoping to get you guys together, and I'm basically going to use you as labor to help set the competition up for the stuff like related to the awards ceremony and things like that. But I won't tell you that I'm using you for labor. I'm telling you that it'll be an in-person leadership meeting. And so suddenly you'll be more likely to show up where we can actually have you guys start helping out a little bit. So no, look forward to that. Look forward to that competition when we host it. Look forward to some of the in-person stuff that I'm planning because it should be a good time. Let's kind of jump back to where we are with LAP though. So last week we started two threads. One thread was the event management and kind of a grab bag, a potpourri of different topics related to big events that maybe aren't as talked about as frequently. So lots of people know to plan or write emails, but what does it actually mean to set up for an event like the tournament that we're hosting? We started that topic a little bit with kind of planning for failure and the ways you can plan for things to go wrong. And we also talked about traffic flow, which I really enjoyed because it's something I've kind of gotten into recently. But this week, we're going to actually talk about one more topic, and then I'll give you one more topic to cover next week. And so we'll jump into that in just a minute. And then we also talked about compliments and how easy it is to compliment people's appearances and things that you like about them. And so I was able to see everyone's Google Classroom response. Thank you guys for doing that. This is really cool. Just picking out all the things you guys talked about. I was really excited to see that. So thank you for that. Speaking of which, let's pull up Google Classroom now. So just have Google Classroom up in a tab in the background. We'll come back to it later, but go ahead and grab Google Classroom on a second device or a second screen or second tab, just so you have it ready for later today. With that said, let's talk about our extra little event management topic this week, and that is going to be crowd hype. So, as it turns out, one of the beautiful things about hosting competition is that as coaches and directors, we're responsible for the crowd. That's not something that people get to be put into positions of power very often. I think a lot of people your age, my age, our age, will never really touch like crowd management and like being a host and stuff like that until very late in their careers when there's some sort of executive over a company. They're the ones speaking from a company. But by and large, the fact that we're going to be in control of the crowd is a very exciting thing because it's just, again, it's not something that most people get to do. And so at the very, 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 very beginning of this course, I talked about how this is teaching to the highest level. So this is the perfect example of that. As it turns out, Davina and Ferris are not going to be MCs over the awards ceremony at our invitational. But hopefully, the fact that I'm talking to our coaches with this kind of prep will allow the rest of you as competitors to appreciate it when you see it in place. Also to criticize it when it goes wrong, but we'll just focus on the positive. It'll allow you to appreciate all the work that we're putting into it and make you more aware and more excited when things go well. And so I've got 3 very fast bullet points with crowd hype, and then we're going to get into some examples, which are really interesting. So starting off with crowd hype, we have a physics equation, momentum. So momentum, if you can imagine like a truck that's driving very quickly cannot stop very quickly. Likewise, a truck that's stationary takes a lot of energy to speed up. That's the basic premise of momentum. Momentum is the mass that an object has times its velocity. Can we apply that to crowds? I think so. When we have hundreds of people watching us, the crowd as a whole has a lot of mass. And so when one person might get excited or sad very quickly, when you have hundreds of people getting very excited all of a sudden, that has sway, that has weight that it brings to the table. And you need to be very much aware of that. And how you're going to manipulate that and control it to make sure that everyone's having a good time is very important, which makes it our responsibility. So when it comes to the awards ceremony, that's the most hype day of the Science Olympiad tournament for just about everyone. We have some techniques that we're going to implement, and we'll see how effective they are, but we want to maximize crowd hype. And so we're going to try to bring some strategies and just coordinate our award ceremony in such a way that hype will be maximized just for everyone. And so when we talk about hype, I prefer visual, and I came up with this really cool graph that I'm going to show you. I'm really proud of it. I hope you like it too. This is the ideal excitement curve of an audience member at an award ceremony. So this visually represents what I would speculate the average person feels hype-wise when they go to a Science Olympiad award ceremony. And so we have kind of an intro phase when you know that, people say go to the award ceremony at 5. People are kind of filing in. They're taking their seats. They're talking with their teammates. During this phase, oftentimes may have directors may speak to the audience and talk about, hey, everyone's having a good day today. If you're happy with the results or not happy with the results, blah, 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 blah. Different tournaments before we've seen would do some sort of like a tournament, like a competition during this stage. I went to a competition a number of years ago that I believe had, I think it was a Wii Sports boxing match as a way to kind of get people excited in the lead up to the awards ceremony. And that was very effective because even people who weren't playing in the event or who were in the audience could still root for their teammates who were up there fighting. And that was a really, really cool little module. We're not going to be able to do that at our tournament, but it's something that still sticks in my mind. And so that kind of lead-in introduction phase is what I mean here by seeding. You see the hype builds a little bit as people kind of get in and get excited about stuff. And then we have, now it's time to go to the awards. And whoa, everyone goes crazy. That's a big spike. So that spike of, let's start the awards ceremony. A is for anatomy. Like that really defines your hype for the entire award ceremony. And so, as you can imagine, that point in our award ceremony is a very important one. And we'll talk about some ways that can be manipulated. And then as the award ceremony trails on, people generally lose a little bit of hype over time. Obviously, that spikes when their event or their child's event comes up. You'll see a big spike. Like, okay, it's my event. I'm up there, and I medaled or didn't medal. That's a spike. And then the next event. And then after the last event, after kind of like your witty or your trial events, there's a little bit of hype fall off. And then a good awards ceremony will take that, bounce it right back up as high as it can get when they announce the team awards. And then they end the awards ceremony. Everyone's hyped, even if they're not a finalist team. And so everyone's able to kind of like leave the awards ceremony like, wow, that was really fun. Everyone's having a great time and a good mood. And so this is our target. Coaches, when we're planning for our awards ceremony, this is our target. This is what we're going to try and accomplish at our tournament. Let's look at 3 ways that can go wrong. So using case studies of competitions that you've been to, that I've been to, over the years, you start to see a couple trends of award ceremonies. And so let's kind of investigate a couple of those now. The first case study is known as the long introduction. So everyone kind of comes in, gets their seats, and then you have the MC grab the mic, say, all right, let's go for the awards. And then I'm going to pass it over to Professor so-and-so to talk about their PhD research. And suddenly you're stuck in a 40-minute talk on what some professor's doing as research at their institution. That is very much an interesting way of starting an awards ceremony, because you get that spike of hype when people are excited for the awards. and then it shoots down very quickly, and you have the speaker, the talking, or something of that nature. And so by the time the awards actually start, by the time A's for Anatomy is called, you'll see our hype for each individual event is lower on average than if we were to just go straight into the events from the start of the awards announcement. And so one way we can attack that, we can make sure that try and prevent that loss of hype in our initial starting of the awards ceremony, is that no one will say anything about awards starting until the awards are actually going to start, as in anatomy is about to be read off. And so if we're going to have people do some talks, the directors give a talk about the tournament, or some of our coaches will say something, which they don't know yet, but yes, I'm going to ask that I'm going to require that our coaches say something into the microphone in front of hundreds of people. If we're going to have that happen, we're going to want to do that in this introductory phase. We don't want to do that after announcing awards are starting, because that kills hype. And so we're going to want to do that in the introduction phase, once people are seated, before we actually announce that we're at the awards. So we're just going, hey, good to see everyone. Here's some things you want to make you aware of, or great seeing everyone, or give some inspirational TED Talk, whatever that may be. That's going to want to happen before the spike of hype that comes from starting awards. And so we're going to hold each other accountable and make sure that no one says into the microphone, let's start the awards ceremony, until anatomy is about to be read off. So that's kind of the first case study, the long introduction. And I've seen it a number of times where people get bamboozled into thinking that the awards are about to start, and then it's an extra hour before they do. Let's make sure that doesn't happen at our tournament. Case study number 2. I've seen this happen a couple times as well. Technical difficulties, or an event is not actually ready. It's always EXPD for some reason. It's always EXPD. EXPD is the one that's not ready. And so, as you can see, people are excited and hyped and get through their events, and then suddenly technical difficulties are announced. Hype dies out. Yes, you'll still see the spike when things pick back up, but it's not going to be the same vibe as riding off of the hype that comes from the thrill of starting awards. Now, this is unfortunate because not only does it look unprofessional for us, but it also, it's kind of disrupting or disrespectful to the students in those later events who aren't able to have the same excitement as their disease detectives or bioprocess lab partners did at the very beginning of the award ceremony. And so another way we can tackle this is by extending the seating leg, meaning stalling, for as long as we need to until the entire awards show is prepared, is locked in, and is ready to go. At our competition, if you look at the directors and your coaches as we're up there running around with a microphone, you will see that there will be multiple levels of checks that every person has to approve before we say, let's start the awards ceremony. Everyone's going to have to be on the same page. All the events have to be ready to go. All the cue cards are ready. Everyone's seated. Everyone's ready. And so there's no disruptions in the middle of it. That's going to be a very important step that we're taking. And so, we're not going to start the awards at all until the entire awards ceremony is ready to go. And that seems intuitive in some ways, but you'd be surprised how often that doesn't actually happen. And then I think my personal favorite way that awards ceremonies can be kind of maneuvered around is the long team awards section. So, great awards ceremony. They start with the hype, go through all the events, and then at the very end, they do, before we move on, coaches, make sure to pick up your tests at the coaches' room, or they bring the lost and found out all of a sudden after doing Witty, and they say, okay, we have this backpack, who lost his backpack? And they spend 15 minutes trying to do that after all the individual awards are out, before the team awards are out. That's a big no-no. We do not want to do that. We want to get through that team award stage as fast as possible, because that team award stage is technically only relevant to the top 6 teams. One thing you'll see very often when these events aren't riding that hype is that you'll see Witty is called, and then dozens of people stand up and they all start walking towards the exit. They don't care about the team awards. They're not there for that. They know they didn't get it, and so they just walk right out. We don't want to have that. It's obviously, it disrupts the hype and disrespectful for the award-winning teams, the finalist teams who made it. And it's it's the last thing that these people are going to remember from the awards ceremony, barring or from our tournament, barring trying to drive out of the parking lot. And so we want that to be a really strong final impression. We want that hype to be as exciting as possible for everyone, even if they're not in the final section. And so we're going to handle that by talking about all the logistics. All the logistics are going to happen during the seeding phase and the introductory phase. We don't want to have any kind of interruptions during that, riding the hype off of Witty into the team awards. And in addition, we want to make sure that teams have time to celebrate. But ideally speaking, we'd want to keep each individual team up there for as little time as possible. Bringing the whole team up to take a picture is really cool for them. It can kind of kill the vibe a little bit, or you lose the momentum of the audience when that happens. And so we'll talk with the rest of the directors and try to figure out how we want to handle that. But the general principle we want to keep in mind is minimizing the amount of time between the final announcement of a final individual event and the announcement of the team awards, and also minimizing the amount of time between each team award. So those are the kinds of things that we want to keep in mind as we're going about our tournament, at least handling the awards ceremony phase. The other, and I'm going very fast because I'm going to get to our second topic, but the other event management topic that I was thought about introducing this week, I'm actually going to push to next week for time's sake, is ICS, the Incident Command System. I can say with almost certainty you've never heard of this before. I can say with almost certainty no one under the age of 37 has heard of this before. It is a really, on the surface, a really boring management thing, and no one really cares about it. But ICS is actually really cool. It is a leadership or a management style that is used primarily by government offices, so like the police department, fire department, public works, federal offices during times of, typically, not always, but typically during times of crisis. So there is a hurricane, it comes through, destroys a town. You will see ICS systems being set up by FEMA, our emergency management agency. You'll be seeing it set up by local fire departments, and it's a really cool system that we're going to try and take some aspects of and integrate into our own leadership styles at our awards ceremony. And that'll be where you come in after you're done competing. And so I'll give you this video. It's 10 minutes. It's colorful-ish, and some people might say it's boring, but it's 10 minutes, and you may get a thing or two out of it that's useful in the future. And so I'll have you watch this video next week. Just give it a look and pick one or two things you can pull out of it, and we'll kind of implement that into how we're going to handle leadership at our tournament. With that said, we also started a second thread last week. I want to continue. Compliments. I love your guys' compliments. I loved everything you guys picked out to compliment about other people. There was a lot of things about what people were wearing, which I thought was absolutely super cool. So-and-so thrifted a new item. That was memorable. Haircuts. I love the haircuts are one of my favorite ones. That was really cool. There was one about makeup and new shoes. I like that one too. Some clothes ones. Yeah, I really like this. But I mean, I kind of feel like you know me well enough by this point that surely a course under the premise of leadership, with one of the foundational pillars being to help other people and kind of help our community and help the world, wouldn't just stop at appearance when it comes to compliments. Are we able to take compliments a little further? I think so. Our goal was to deliver effective compliments, but for the second kind of glance into this topic, I want to focus on that word effective. How do we generate effective compliments? Not just compliments that are true or honest, which they should be, but effective compliments that really speak to a person, a part of a person that they genuinely care about. Let's kind of investigate that a little bit more. So last week I presented this slide to you as the tangible stuff and then the intangible stuff. We glossed over the intangible and focused on intangible. We talked about appearance and things you can compliment, and color, patterns, and effort. All that are wonderful compliment topics. And I hope that forcing you to compliment someone this week and how easy that really was will maybe serve as an indirect motivation for you to keep doing it, and just kind of make it part of your vocabulary. Like you'll just kind of instinctually say other compliments to the people. It doesn't need to be an assignment or something you need to consciously think of. If you see something cool, you'll say so. Hopefully that's how it becomes. But with this second look, I want to focus on the intangible. The actions, beliefs, personalities, traits, especially the actions. When we want to be effective, and again, when we want to speak to things that people care about, I feel like the intangible might be worth another look. I also presented this slide, case for compliments. You can't see it very well, but I bolded a couple things. Societally speaking, make others feel seen. Can we do that more effectively than just talking about the clothes they're wearing? Probably. And can you train yourself to see positive things? That's something that we've encountered in previous lessons, even before compliments. Is that something we want to emphasize? Probably. So, maximizing effectiveness. How can you make your compliments more effective beyond physical appearance? Which, again, to be clear, is a wonderful thing, and I hope you continue to do it. But in addition to physical compliments, what kind of compliments can you give that are genuinely speaking to people's souls? What do people care most about? I mean, there are certainly people who care a lot about they found a really good deal at the store and they're wearing this new jacket and they want people to look at it and say it's cool and that makes them feel happy. Sure. But what about the other people in your life who have other intentions, other desires that they're trying to bring to the world and they want to show others? Can you speak to them in your compliments? Yeah, I think you can. That kind of stems into behaviors. So, yes, again, physical appearance is a great thing to compliment, but I would contend that behaviors or the things that people think about or the things that people do are more directly related or intrinsic to our motivations or our desires as kind of humanity. And so for you to not only say that your shoes look nice, but also I really appreciate your outlook on this topic, or I really appreciate your attitude, or I really appreciate how kind you are. Those intangible things are just feel more tangible to us when we think about who we present as ourselves to the outside world. And so I want to take that idea of focusing on behaviors and thought processes and complementing those and seeing how we can kind of develop that. I think a formula that I developed, which hopefully will be helpful, is when you want to compliment someone's behavior or you want to show gratitude, it's a thank you. I think thank yous make wonderful compliments. When you're showing gratitude for something, you are emphasizing how important that behavior, that act is to you, which elevates that act to one that you respect. And therefore, by being grateful and by saying thank you, you are complimenting. So thank yous are a wonderful way of doing that. So you want to compliment, you want to show gratitude for how someone behaves around you or what they think about or what they did that you saw was really cool. Simple formula. Thank you for, or I really like, some sort of introduction, very simple. Thank you for, or it was really cool how, or something along those lines. You pick a specific thing, a specific instance of something they did or thought or said, a specific behavior they went through with, and you pinpoint that and you call it out. Then, in response to that, you talk about how you feel. I feel, or I noticed, or I realized that has an effect on people, or something along those lines. So that's very specific thing that they did, you recognize as having an effect on you or others, and then you tie in some sort of speculation as to the possible reasons why they do it. Now, does this look familiar? Jumping back a couple weeks. That's means and that's motives. The specific ways in which people conduct themselves and possible reasons why they do it fills out the perfect formula for delivering effective compliments. By tailoring your words to the specific situation unfolding around you and the specific intentions and desires of the individual you are targeting. Your compliments go from generic, a dime a dozen, or and almost sometimes even like light, to these deep, impactful compliments that really target someone's soul, what they bring to the world. And so when we spent week 7 developing our ability to think about the means of how people do things, and elucidating our thoughts into words, and trying to expand our imagination and put it into definable, objective measures of measuring those events. And then we used our imagination from even weeks ago to speculate on possible reasons why they do the things that they do, whether they know it or not. We can harness that and deliver to people this beautiful message to their inner human. What a powerful tool. And so with that, I want to kind of go to some examples. I'm going to jump back a couple weeks, and let's talk about the examples we used for kind of exploring the means and the motives of people's behavior and trying to develop those behavior into words. So recall the example, Sam is funny. We had 3 means and 3 possible motives. By saying Sam is funny, that's generic. Anyone can point out that someone's funny. But do you have the skill to specifically pinpoint how Sam is being funny? Is it the physical comedy? Is it the social awareness, the ability to understand what everyone's thinking and cater to that? Is it the quick wit, the super smart, like super fast thinking, reflexive, responsive verbalizations of comedy that Sam's able to pull out of thin air in response to a situation? Those are all very different ways of being funny. Similarly, the reason Sam might want to be funny, whether he knows it or not, could be very different. It could be that he wants to make everyone happy. A wonderful reason, a wonderful motive. It could be that he's trying to improve his skill, his thinking, his ability in that sense. Also very respectable. Maybe he's using it. You can tell that Sam always uses comedy to break the ice. And really his motivation is to build connections with people. So that's also very admirable. By taking this generic concept, this generic good thing, Sam is funny, and breaking it down, we can now flip the color of our background of our slide and turn that into a compliment. Let's pick 2. Let's pick the socially aware, the reading the room means that you admire about Sam being funny. And let's pick the desire to bring joy to others' lives as a wonderful thing. Can we develop a compliment around that? Let's use that formula. So you have the introduction. Sam, I noticed something. Okay? What did you notice specifically? I noticed that you're really good at reading the room. Not just saying that, Sam, you're really funny. Sam, I noticed you're really good at reading the room. Thanks for always making me laugh. Thank you for always bringing joy to others. Thank you for always lightening the vibe of the room, or bringing excitement to my day. Cheesy? 100%. Absolutely. But let's dissect it. By picking out the fact that by elucidating the thought that Sam is really good at reading the room, it shows that you're actually putting thought into this. Again, anyone can say something generic about a situation. Sam is funny, sure. But you're specifically calling out a skill that Sam has. That shows that you thought about this. It shows that the compliment that you're bringing to the table has weight. That second part. Thanks for always making me laugh. Now, this is a bit of a difficult to verbalize way of approaching the issue, but I'm hoping to get the best out here. The fact that Sam is driven by the appeal of bringing laughter to others is noble. That might be something that you admire. Your compliment may or may not directly address that. So you could say to Sam, I really admire how you have this desire to make people laugh. That would be a wonderful compliment. And equally, I would argue, an equally wonderful compliment is say, thank you for making me laugh. Because knowing that Sam finds his true joy in bringing laughter to others and telling him that he makes you laugh a lot, then you're delivering that joy to him directly. And so again, that's a bit of an odd nuance with this, with the notion that you can formulate your compliments. But that second part, the motives, in the compliment, you can address it directly, or you can address it indirectly. In this case, we addressed it indirectly. We know that Sam finds joy in bringing laughter to others, and so we gave it to him directly by saying, "You make me laugh." We'd never talked about his desire, but in our compliment, we catered to it. Now, some of you might be thinking that, like, okay, we don't know his motives, right? Yes, that's true. The notion that Sam is driven by the appeal to bring laughter to others is speculation. It could just be that Sam's an attention hog and wants people to look at him. Maybe. But as you start to develop the skill, you'll start to make guesses, or you'll start to make predictions that will be closer and closer to accurate. The more that you interact with the socialized world around you, the more that you understand the interplay between people, their emotions, and their environment, the more likely you are to get an accurate motive when breaking down someone's behavior. And so I would contend that whether you're right or not, you should just go for the compliment anyways. If you're wrong, then the compliment has no meaning to him. That's fine. You lose nothing. He gets half a compliment, whatever. But if you're right, if you're able to talk to his true desires as a human, that's magical. That's really cool. And so that's a gamble I'm willing to take, and I've been trying to take recently. And that's a gamble I'm hoping that you'll be willing to take as well. Let's jump to another example. This was probably my favorite example, actually, from 2 weeks ago when we talked about analyzing behavior. Mrs. Smith is nice. Okay, you can look, any student at your school can say a teacher's nice. That's not a difficult thing to do. But are you able to take that a little bit further and break down that behavior as to why you find Mrs. Smith so nice? Well, we did. We provided 3 examples of specifying what about Mrs. Smith's behavior makes her nice. She greets students at the door, reachable by email all the time, and constantly walking around, interacting with students, seeing how everyone's doing. That requires thought. That is a skill. The fact that you're able to take that and pull that out of the situation is very impressive. And so with that, we then pivoted to motives. What are some of the possible reasons Mrs. Smith is doing this? We talked about maybe how Mrs. Smith wants to be a parental figure, like a mother figure to students who may not have a mother, or whose home life is not as comfortable as they wish it was. We talked about the possibility that Mrs. Smith knows how scary the world is out there, and to have a part of the day where her students can come and just have a calm time is really important to her. Maybe Mrs. Smith just wants to give her students the tools to make the world a better place. Like, that's a noble motive for sure. All of those are very different in the whole grand scheme of why Mrs. Smith chooses to do these things. But again, we can take that knowledge and we can turn that into a compliment to Mrs. Smith that really addresses this. And so, again, we'll flip the color of the background. The 2 means, we have Mrs. Smith greets students at the door, walks around during class, asks students how they're doing. The motive is being a mother figure. Let's look at our compliment, and we take it all together. Mrs. Smith, thank you for always greeting us at the door and checking in us during class. I always feel like you care about each of us, and we can always come to you if something's wrong. That's a simple sentence. But again, breaking it down a little bit further, notice how you pick out, instead of saying, Mrs. Smith, you're so nice, thank you for being nice. It's, Mrs. Smith, I notice that you do these behaviors. Not everyone notices that you do it, but I notice you do it. And I'm calling it out. I'm highlighting them. I'm underlining it. I want to emphasize that these behaviors affect how I feel about you, about school, and they make me feel better overall. Now, again, with the second half, just like in the previous example, we never say, Mrs. Smith, I think you're a mother figure to me. That could be, depending on how well you know the teacher, could be a wonderful thing to say. Depending on how you know the teacher, could be an awkward thing to say. But you notice how the second part of your compliment, I feel like you care about each of us. We can come to you something's wrong. Those are words and concepts that surround the idea of being a mother figure for someone. And so by picking that out and by saying that I feel that you're like a mother figure to me, indirectly, you're again addressing Mrs. Smith's desire as to why she is this nice. Now, I will stipulate. Are we speculating? Absolutely. Is it possible that Mrs. Smith is being very nice because she wants to get good teacher performance scores so she can get a raise? Yes, that's possible. Again, though, the more you practice a skill, the more you observe the world around you, the more likely you are to be right as to attributing these motives. And I can guarantee you there are multiple teachers at this school who use this motive in how they interact with their students. I can guarantee it. I've talked to teachers about it. It's part of the reason they go into teaching. They want to be a foundation, a cornerstone, this rock for their students, regardless of what's going on in the life of that student. And so you go up to teacher and you say that, I feel like I can always come to you if something's wrong. That kind of word to them is the kind of thing that it goes on in their mind, it goes on their refrigerator with a magnet. That's the kind of thing that they write in their journal and reread whenever they're struggling with certain student or struggling at home. That's the thing they meditate on when they think about the impact that they leave on the world and their legacy as teacher and what it all means in the end. Like that, to have a student who, I mean, let's be honest, for our age demographic, is typically kind of selfish and kind of self-centered, doesn't really keep other people in play. To have a student, their target audience, come to them and say, you have done well. I am so thankful to have you. That's rocking their world. I mean, that truly is rocking their world. It's the kind of thing they hold on to. And I know this for a fact because I've seen it with teachers. And all it takes for you to do that is an extra 20 seconds to sit down, think about what they do, and guess why they do it. You will be guessing correctly eventually. And the compliments you deliver as a result will be very, very powerful. And so let's get a little bit of practice with this. You have Google Classroom pulled up. I would say grab your, if you're able to, pull up your response from week 7. The 2 people, the 2 peers and 1 teacher. And not everyone was able to complete the whole assignment. That's fine. I get it. But just grab whatever you have for week 7. Give it a quick reread. And then I'm going to ask that you use the chat and private message me a compliment for one of the people you wrote about. So I'll go back and I'll switch back to the formula. It's not a complicated formula. At a certain point, it'll become instinct. But remember, we want to say thank you for, or I admire how you do this. Or I really respect how you do this. We talk about the specific behaviors or things that they do. And we talk about the effect that has. Whether you want to talk about their motives specifically, I really look up to how you care about other people. Or I always feel cared for when you're around. Both are perfectly acceptable. Both are wonderful. So let's take a couple minutes. You have plenty of time. Go ahead and pull up the Zoom chat and direct message me if you're able to. If you're not, no worries. Direct message me a compliment that you can develop with the people that you wrote about in week 7. At the very end, if you are okay with me reading it out loud, please put like okay to share, or you can talk about it or something like that, just so I know I can read it out. But yeah, let's take a couple minutes. Let's develop one compliment for someone that you wrote about in week 7 using this formula. And if you're okay with sharing it, let me know. Alrighty, once you start to finish those up, feel free to send it in. No rush, we still got plenty of time. I'm just going to think back to I remember when I talked about week 7, one of the examples I wanted to give of kind of the means and the motives of people, or teachers especially in my life, that I really looked up to. We'll say Mr. J. I remember a teacher I had, he constantly was at the door. Like, not he could have been working paperwork or like grading stuff, but at the start of class, he was always at the door. And he was always like saying good afternoon to all of his students, and making eye contact, looking at each of them as they walked in. And during class, he would not only like take time to talk about the material and all that stuff, but there'd be a couple minutes of flex time here and there where it would just be talking about like his life, like what's going on in his life or his kids' lives, or the high school sports game, things like that. And so I was thinking about him. I was like, yeah, man, yes, he's a nice teacher. A lot of kids liked him, absolutely. But if I were to think about that more, I'd be like, wow, Mr. J, I really appreciate how you make such a concerted effort, such an intentional effort to stay in touch with your students, not on just the social level, but also like on a personal level. He makes so many intentions to connect to your students. I always feel like I can lean on you when I need to. That is something I feel so strongly about. And by saying that, by communicating that, you're affirming those actions, which I just think is really cool. So let me grab a couple examples from the chat. Thank you for always making me feel like I belong by saying hi whenever you see me. Look at that. By saying hi whenever you see me, this is a very specific thing to call out. But make me feel like I belong. That's such a deep thing, a vulnerable thing for you to share that really affirms what someone else is going for. I admire how you always put the spotlight on others rather than highlighting the praises give to you. It makes me feel appreciated and admired. Like, that's a really beautiful thing to say to someone. Like, that really is a beautiful thing to say to someone. How you're always looking out for others, sacrificing your own time to see a smile in other faces. It's just so cool. That's what this boils down to. It's so cool how within with a minute's worth of effort, the things that you guys are saying here are so like directly impactful into how people interact with you. I just really like this a lot. So yeah, I've been using this for a little while now, trying to pinpoint things that people aren't really aware of, or they may try to intentionally, but others don't keep in mind, and bring that as like a compliment to other people. There's a couple instances I remember. Like, one of them was like, we had a new teacher at our school, and he was teaching seniors, which is kind of a scary thing to do, because the seniors are ready to go out of a high school, and they all know the high school very well, and he's the new guy coming in. And so I remember saying, like, the first time I met him, I was like, "Oh, so nice to meet you. I've all my friends are saying such great things about how you make the classroom a welcoming and exciting environment. They're really singing your praises out there. So it's very nice to meet you." And that spread through the back alleys of teacher gossip to quite a few teachers in my school. And that's not the reason I did it, to be clear. But that wasn't like a 2000 IQ compliment. It was just calling out something that I saw. I noticed that my peers were very complimentary of this teacher. And so I told him that. I told him why they said that. And he took that to heart. And so with the things you guys are saying, like, this is like, you have the potential to do the same thing. It's not some elaborate, like, high-tech developed way of approaching talking to people. It just requires an extra couple seconds of thought. And so with that, I'm hoping that you're going to implement this in your life. I think it's a very straightforward thing. Once you get the process down, you get better at it. It's like any other skill. The more you practice, the better you are at it. And so I am going to ask that we do that this week. When we talk about like people you want to compliment, you've already written out and done the thinking with week 7's homework. You already picked people that you can compliment because you've broken down their behavior for homework. So now take Connection 30 seconds, combine the things that you wrote in the Google Classroom post, which again are fantastic, and then walk up to that person and verbalize it. Just tell them that. That's not a difficult thing to do once you kind of get like into it. But you'll have the ability to really brighten someone's day. At the worst, you'll make someone a little bit happier. And at the best, your quote will be on their mantelpiece. It'll be over their fireplace. It'll be hung on their entryway in fancy cursive in the depths of their mind because it has that much of an impact on them. So the odds are incredibly in your favor. You cannot lose. Give it a shot. I'm going to ask this week, you pick one peer, and if you wrote about a teacher, give a teacher. Do two people. Give them some in-depth compliments. Break down their behavior, combine it together, and deliver to them. I want to hear about it on Google Classroom. And I'm very excited to seeing how this goes. With that, we're done with this week. Next week is going to be an independent learning thing. I'm not going to be able to host a meeting because we'll be very busy, but you're going to have a short video to watch, a couple of bullet points to think through or write out, and then we will see you guys at Sierra Vista for the tournament. Very excited for that. So great to see you guys. So glad you made it out. I'm really excited to see the kind of compliments you deliver to people this week. We'll see you later.